Welcome to the 15 most haunted natural places in Michigan. Michigan is known for its lakes, forests, and beautiful landscapes. But beneath that beauty lies something darker. Hidden in the mist of its dunes, the shadows of its islands, and the depths of its forests are places where the natural world and the supernatural collide. These are places where travelers vanish, ghostly figures drift across lonely trails, and the cries of the lost echo through the night air. Tonight, we take you beyond the towns and hotels and deep into the wild heart of the state. From cursed forests to haunted waterfalls, from phantom lights dancing over the lakes to the terrifying legends that still haunt the sand dunes. This is not the Michigan you see on postcards. This is the Michigan the locals whisper about, the one they warn you not to explore after dark. Haunted place number 1, Isle Royale National Park. Far out in the cold waters of Lake Superior lies Isle Royale, a place so remote and untamed that it feels cut off from the rest of the world. It is known today as a rugged wilderness where moose wander freely, wolves prowl silently, and dense forests swallow the sound of your footsteps. But this island carries with it something far older and darker than its natural beauty. Isle Royale is a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and where legends of ghostly presences continue to haunt both locals and visitors. Long before it became a national park, the island was sacred ground for native tribes, who mined its rich copper deposits thousands of years ago. Archaeologists have uncovered pits, tools, and evidence of ancient activity, but the deeper stories come from oral traditions. Many tribes believed the island was protected by spirits and that disturbing its land without proper rituals invited great misfortune. Even today, some people say the forest feels heavy, as if unseen eyes are always watching. When European settlers and miners came in the 1800s, they too began to experience strange things. Workers reported hearing phantom voices whispering in languages they could not understand. Lanterns were said to flicker on their own, and shadows moved along the rocky cliffs where no one was walking. Several miners died tragically in accidents, and legends claim their spirits never left the tunnels carved into the earth. Some visitors swear they still hear the faint sound of picks striking rock, echoing through areas that have been abandoned for more than a century. But the most chilling stories come from the water. Lake Superior is notorious for shipwrecks, and Isle Royale is surrounded by them. The cold, clear depths have preserved the remains of vessels that sank during violent storms. Divers have described encountering more than twisted metal. Some report seeing ghostly figures drifting near the wrecks, pale shapes floating in the water before vanishing into the deep. Fishermen tell of strange lights moving beneath the surface, glowing orbs that cannot be explained by natural phenomena. Hikers who camp overnight often speak of unsettling encounters. Tents shake in the middle of the night when no wind is blowing. Footsteps circle campsites only to fade into silence. Others describe hearing howls in the distance, sounds that do not belong to wolves or any known animal. Park rangers, while careful not to fuel superstition, quietly admit that they too have felt uneasy in certain parts of the island. Isle Royale is beautiful, yes, but it is also isolating. Surrounded by miles of icy water, visitors often feel trapped, as though the island itself is alive and does not want them to leave. The sense of being watched, of unseen presences moving through the trees, is so strong that many campers cut their trips short. The ferry ride back to the mainland often feels like an escape from something much older and more powerful than human history. Those who believe in the supernatural say Isle Royale holds onto the souls of those lost to its mines, its waters, and its wilderness. The island is not only haunted by the dead, but also by the weight of its own history. To step onto Isle Royale is to step into a place where the veil between the natural and the paranormal grows thin, and where even the bravest travelers may find themselves unsettled by the shadows that never leave. Number 2, Sleeping Bear Dunes, Glen Arbor. Towering above the Lake Michigan shoreline, the Sleeping Bear Dunes are one of Michigan's most breathtaking natural wonders. From a distance, the dunes rise like massive golden waves frozen in time, stretching for miles against the endless horizon. Yet behind this stunning beauty lies a heartbreaking legend, one that continues to haunt the winds that sweep across the sand. The story comes from Native American lore. Long ago, a mother bear and her 2 cubs tried to cross Lake Michigan in search of food and safety. The journey was long, the waters rough, and the cubs began to fall behind. The mother bear swam desperately, urging them forward, but the powerful waves proved too strong. Exhausted and unable to keep up, the cubs slipped beneath the surface, lost forever to the deep. The mother bear made it to shore and climbed a bluff, where she lay down to wait, her heart shattered by grief. She never moved again, watching the waters endlessly, hoping for her cubs to return. The Great Spirit took pity on her sorrow and transformed her into the great dune that still rests on the shoreline today. Her cubs became the two Manitou Islands, resting just off the coast in the endless blue of Lake Michigan. It's a story of love, loss, and eternal mourning. But visitors say the legend is more than myth. At night, when the winds race over the dunes, many claim to hear voices within them, long, mournful cries that sound eerily like a grieving mother calling for her children. Some describe it as wailing, others as whispering chants carried through the sand. Campers who have stayed nearby say the sound is so chilling it feels impossible to sleep. It's as if the sorrow of the bear is still alive, woven into the very landscape. Hikers who climb the dunes often feel an overwhelming sense of sadness as they reach the summit. The beauty of the view is undeniable, but many admit that something about the silence feels heavy, almost sacred. Others say that when the wind suddenly picks up, they felt cold chills rush through their bodies, as though the spirit of the mother bear brushed past them in her eternal search. Some locals even warn that the dunes are not a place to take lightly. The sand shifts constantly, swallowing footprints and reshaping itself with each passing storm. It is said that if you stand still long enough, the ground feels alive beneath you, as though the mother bear herself is breathing beneath the surface. A few have even reported hearing the sound of paw steps in the sand, heavy, deliberate, but with no visible tracks left behind. For many, the Sleeping Bear Dunes are a place of reverence. Families visit to honor the legend, leaving behind offerings or quiet prayers for the lost cubs. But for those who stay after dark, the dunes are not peaceful. The endless moan of the wind becomes haunting, the shadows along the slopes grow long and unnatural, and the feeling of being watched presses down. The grieving mother bear, they say, is still there, her cries forever etched into the winds that sweep across the sands of Glen Arbor. Number 3, Presque Isle Lighthouse, Lake Huron. Rising proudly from the dense forests along the shores of Lake Huron, the Presque Isle Lighthouse is one of Michigan's most iconic landmarks. Its white tower and black lantern have guided sailors safely through the treacherous waters since the 1800s. The setting is both serene and isolated, the whisper of the trees, the crash of waves against the rocks, and the lonely beam of light sweeping across the lake. But behind this picturesque view is a chilling legend that has made Presque Isle Lighthouse one of the most haunted natural places in the state. The story centers on George Paris, the longtime keeper of the lighthouse. George loved the tower deeply. More than a job, the lighthouse became his life, his home, and his pride. He was known for his dedication, often described as a man who cared for the beacon as though it were his own child. Even after his retirement, George and his wife continued to live in a house near the tower. Locals say that whenever he was away, George would return quickly, almost as if he feared leaving the lighthouse unattended. When George eventually passed away, many thought his connection to the lighthouse would finally be severed. But almost immediately, strange things began to happen. Despite being decommissioned and locked up, the light in the tower would turn on at night, its beams sweeping the waters of Lake Huron as if still guiding ships through the dark. The problem was there was no electricity running to the lantern. The lighthouse had been shut down and left inactive. Yet sailors and residents reported seeing the glow shining across the lake, steady and strong, as if George had refused to let his duties end in death. Visitors to Presque Isle have reported even more chilling encounters. Some claim to see a shadowy figure at the top of the tower, moving past the windows, pacing the lantern room as though checking the light. Others say they've heard footsteps echoing on the spiral staircase when no one else is inside. The most unsettling reports describe hearing a man's voice, calm but firm, giving orders or humming softly, almost as though George is still keeping watch. A few paranormal investigators who dared to spend the night inside the lighthouse described sudden cold drafts sweeping past them, the unmistakable sound of keys jingling, and the scent of tobacco smoke, George's favorite indulgence during his life. On more than one occasion, locked doors mysteriously opened on their own, as if welcoming visitors into his tower. The surrounding forest adds to the sense of unease. At night, the shoreline becomes pitch black, and the lighthouse stands alone as a beacon against the void. Campers nearby have reported seeing the tower glowing faintly even when it is supposed to be dark, the light cutting across the lake before fading away like a ghostly reminder of the keeper's eternal duty. Locals say George Paris is still there because he simply loved the lighthouse too much to leave. The tower was his life, his heart, his purpose. And in some way perhaps it still is. For those who walk its halls today, the sense of being watched is overwhelming, as if unseen eyes are ensuring that the beacon never fails. The Presque Isle Lighthouse is more than a historic landmark. It is a place where duty has outlasted death, where love for a home has turned into an eternal vigil, and where the ghost of a keeper still tends his light, forever guarding the waters of Lake Huron. Number 4. Belle Isle, Detroit River. Belle Isle sits like a jewel in the middle of the Detroit River, a stretch of green wilderness framed by the glittering skyline of Detroit on one side and Windsor, Canada, on the other. On the surface, it looks like an oasis of peace, a place where families picnic, couples walk along the water, and visitors admire the gardens, trails, and zoo. But those who know the history of the island will tell you that beneath its beauty lies a darker layer, one tied to ancient Native American legends, unfulfilled love, and restless spirits that still wander the shores. Long before Detroit was built, Belle Isle was revered by Native American tribes who lived along the river. The Potawatomi and Ottawa people believed the island was sacred and watched over by spirits. According to legend, a beautiful maiden once lived on the island. She was loved by a warrior who promised to marry her, but his heart strayed. He abandoned her, breaking his vow. In her grief and betrayal, the maiden prayed to the spirits of the river. Her tears fell into the waters, and the spirits answered her sorrow with a curse. The island would forever echo with weeping voices, a reminder of broken promises and tragic love. Visitors still claim to hear those cries today. On quiet nights, especially when the mist rolls across the river, people report the faint sound of a woman sobbing. The cries drift through the trees and across the water, fading in and out with the wind. Some say if you stand alone along the eastern shore, you might hear her whisper your name, soft and sorrowful, before vanishing into the night air. But the weeping woman is not the only spirit said to linger. Belle Isle's past is layered with tragedy. Over the centuries there have been drownings, accidents, and mysterious deaths on the island. Locals believe these souls never left. Park rangers and late-night visitors tell stories of seeing shadowy figures moving among the trees. Often, the figures appear solid at first, someone walking along a path, standing near the river, or resting beneath a tree. But as you approach, they dissolve into the air, leaving only silence behind. One chilling tale involves the old Belle Isle Aquarium, the oldest in the country. Visitors have reported strange whispers echoing through the halls, even when no one else is inside. Others speak of cold spots and flickering lights, as if unseen hands are at work. The nearby Anna Scripps Whitcomb Conservatory, with its lush tropical plants and glass dome, has also gained a reputation for unexplained activity. Some say they've seen faint outlines of people among the flowers late at night, watching silently from the shadows. Then there is the water itself. Many fishermen on the Detroit River say they feel uneasy near the shores of Belle Isle. They describe ripples appearing on calm water, as if something or someone is swimming just beneath the surface. A few have claimed to see pale hands break the water's edge before disappearing. These encounters are often followed by the sound of splashing or laughter, as if the river itself is alive with the energy of lost souls. Native legends warn that disrespecting the island can anger its spirits. Some stories suggest that those who take objects from the island or mock its legends are cursed with misfortune until they return and make peace with the spirits. Even today, Detroit locals treat Belle Isle with a quiet reverence, acknowledging both its beauty and its haunted legacy. Belle Isle is more than a park. It is a place where love, betrayal, and tragedy have soaked into the land and water. A place where voices of the past linger in the wind, where shadows slip between trees, and where the spirits of the island remind visitors that the beauty of nature sometimes comes with a haunting price. Number 5. Aquioc Falls, Presque Isle County. Hidden deep in the forests of Presque Isle County lies Aquioc Falls, Michigan's largest waterfall and one of the few in the Lower Peninsula where visitors can actually wade and swim in its rushing waters. By day, it looks like a paradise carved out of the wilderness. Clear water tumbling over limestone rock, sunlight cutting through the tall trees, and the peaceful sound of the river flowing endlessly downstream. Families picnic here, hikers rest on the banks, and children splash in the shallows. But when the sun dips below the horizon, the atmosphere changes. The forest grows heavier, the rushing water seems louder, and the air feels charged with something unseen. That's when the stories begin. For generations, people have whispered that Aquioc Falls is haunted. Local tribes once held the area as sacred, and some legends suggest it was used in rituals and ceremonies that bound the spirits of the land to the water itself. According to some versions of the tale, souls lost in nearby battles or drownings were trapped in the falls, their voices blending with the roar of the rushing current. Visitors claim that if you stand quietly along the rocks at night, you won't just hear the water, you'll hear voices. Disembodied, whispering, calling. Sometimes they sound like conversations, sometimes laughter. But there is never anyone else around. One of the most chilling reports comes from campers who stayed near the falls. Late at night, they were startled by the sound of footsteps moving through the woods. Heavy, deliberate steps circling their sight. But when they shined their flashlights, there was no one there. Only trees, shadows, and the sound of the water echoing through the dark. They said the footsteps continued until dawn, never revealing their source. Another popular legend tells of laughter carried across the falls. Some visitors describe it as children giggling, echoing lightly in the mist. Others say it is darker, mocking laughter, sharp and chilling, like something unseen is toying with them. What makes the reports more unsettling is that the laughter never seems to fade with distance. Instead, it shifts around the listener, sometimes close behind them, other times across the water. And when they turn to look, nothing is there. Hikers also speak of strange feelings when crossing the footbridge near the falls. Many report the sensation of being watched, as though unseen eyes are following their every move. Some describe sudden cold spots, even on hot summer days, or the eerie sense that something is standing right behind them. One story tells of a woman who paused in the middle of the bridge to rest. She suddenly felt a hand press against her back, firm, as though trying to push her forward into the water. She spun around, terrified, but no one was there. Locals believe the spirits tied to Aquioc Falls are restless, caught between the natural beauty of the place and the tragedies that unfolded there long ago. Some say drownings over the years have fed the legends, the victims' voices merging with the river's eternal song. Others believe the falls are a spiritual crossroads, where the energy of the land, water, and forest creates a gateway for spirits to appear. By daylight, Aquioc Falls feels alive, inviting, almost healing. But those who linger too long after dark know a different truth. They describe a place where laughter hides malice, where footsteps echo with no source, and where voices ride the current of the falls, calling out across the forest. A reminder that even the most beautiful landscapes can hold secrets, and sometimes, those secrets refuse to stay silent. Number 6. Turnip Rock, Lake Huron. Rising strangely from the waters of Lake Huron, Turnip Rock is one of Michigan's most famous natural landmarks. This enormous rock formation, shaped like a giant turnip, stands alone offshore near Port Austin. Its base has been eroded by centuries of waves, leaving the top wider than the bottom, with stubborn trees growing from its crown. By day it looks almost whimsical, a bizarre monument sculpted by nature itself. But as with so many beautiful places in Michigan, legends say its beauty hides a darker side. For those who venture near at night, Turnip Rock is not only a wonder of geology, it is a place of restless spirits. Lake Huron is one of the deadliest of the Great Lakes, a graveyard for countless ships. Storms strike fast, waves rise like walls, and many vessels never made it back to port. The waters surrounding Turnip Rock have claimed their share of sailors, and some say their spirits never left. Stories tell of ghostly figures appearing around the rock on misty nights, pale and drenched, their clothes torn as if they had washed ashore from a wreck. Fishermen claim to have seen men waving desperately from the rock, as though signaling for help. But when boats approach, the figures vanish, leaving only rippling water and the eerie sound of wind moving through the trees above. Kayakers who paddle out to Turnip Rock in the evening sometimes report strange experiences. Some have heard voices over the sound of the water, shouts, cries, and even whispered pleas. Others have felt a sudden chill as they drew closer, the air colder near the rock than in the open lake. One chilling account comes from a pair of night kayakers who swore they saw a lantern swinging back and forth near the base of the rock. It looked like someone was stranded, waving for rescue. They rushed forward only to find the rock empty. No light, no figure, nothing but the sound of waves slapping against the stone. Even during the day, some visitors report an unsettling feeling around Turnip Rock. It is isolated, cut off from the shore, and surrounded by deep water. People describe feeling watched, as if unseen eyes were following their movements from the crown of trees above. Some say they've heard footsteps on the rock, though it is nearly impossible for anyone to climb onto its steep surface. A few even claim to have seen hands reaching over the edge, gripping the stone, before slowly sinking back out of sight. Local lore ties these hauntings to the sailors lost in the shipwrecks nearby. Some say their spirits are drawn to Turnip Rock because it was the last thing they saw before the waves pulled them under. Others believe the rock acts like a beacon, a marker in the afterlife for those who never made it home. The most enduring legend tells of a ship that struck the rock during a storm in the late 1800s. Survivors tried to cling to the stone, but the waves dragged them back into the lake. Locals believe those men are still there, their spirits bound to the rock, appearing whenever storms gather on the horizon. Turnip Rock remains a place of beauty and mystery. By day it draws photographers, kayakers, and nature lovers. But when the lake grows dark and the waters churn, it becomes something else entirely. A place where the past clings tightly, where ghostly sailors wave from the shadows, and where the line between the living and the drowned feels dangerously thin. Number 7. North Manitou Island, Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. North Manitou Island lies in the waters of Lake Michigan, shrouded in dense forest and surrounded by miles of rocky shoreline. Today it is part of the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore and attracts campers, hikers, and adventurous travelers who want to experience raw wilderness. But beneath its quiet, natural beauty lies a haunted history that continues to unnerve those who spend the night there. The island is littered with ruins of farms, villages, and homesteads, remnants of settlers who struggled and often failed to survive in its harsh isolation. Locals say those who once lived here never truly left. By day, wandering through the abandoned farms feels like walking through a ghost town. Old barns lean into the earth, collapsing from age. Rusted machinery lies tangled in weeds. Empty homes stare back with broken windows like hollow eyes. But at night, when the island turns black and the sounds of the mainland fade away, the ruins come alive. Campers tell of seeing shadowy figures drifting between the abandoned buildings, figures that vanish when approached. Some claim to have heard footsteps crunching leaves behind them, only to turn and find nothing there. The stories go back decades. Rangers themselves have admitted to strange encounters while patrolling the island. Some describe voices rising from the forest, as though groups of people were talking or singing, even when the island was supposed to be empty. Others have reported lights glowing faintly between the trees, like lanterns moving along forgotten trails. Yet when searched, no source is ever found. One of the eeriest reports centers on the old cemetery hidden deep in the woods. It holds the graves of early settlers, many of whom died young from disease, accidents, or starvation. Visitors say the atmosphere around the cemetery is oppressive, as though the air grows heavy. Some claim to feel watched as they pass, while others describe hearing soft weeping among the gravestones. A few who dared to camp nearby reported waking to see figures standing at the edge of the tree line, watching in silence until they faded away with the morning mist. Campers who pitch tents in the interior of the island often speak of restless nights. The wind howls through the trees, branches snap under unseen weight, and some swear they've heard the faint sound of horses pulling wagons along the overgrown paths. One chilling tale comes from a group who set up camp near the ruins of a farmhouse. Late into the night, they heard the creak of a door opening and closing, though the house had no intact doors left. Moments later, the sound of heavy boots circled their campsite, stopping just outside their tents. No one dared to look. By morning, the ground around them showed no footprints. Legends suggest the spirits of settlers remained tied to North Manitou Island because of the hardships they endured. Cut off from the mainland, their lives were filled with isolation, hunger, and tragedy. It's said the echoes of their struggles still drift across the island, replaying night after night in the form of ghostly figures and phantom sounds. Number 8. Tequamanon Falls Paradise. Deep in Michigan's Upper Peninsula lies Tequamanon Falls, one of the largest waterfalls east of the Mississippi. Its roaring waters pour endlessly through the dense forests near Paradise, cascading in a golden-brown hue caused by the tannins of the cedar swamps that feed the river. By day, it is breathtaking, drawing thousands of visitors who marvel at its power. By night, it becomes something far more unsettling. The locals say the falls are not only a natural wonder but also a place haunted by restless spirits, forever bound to the rushing waters. The Ojibwe people, who lived in this region long before settlers arrived, spoke of spirits tied to the river. According to their legends, the mist rising from the falls was not just water but the breath of spirits moving between worlds. They warned that at night, especially when the moonlight struck the mist, one might see figures walking along the banks who do not belong to this world. Even today, some visitors claim to see faint, shadowy forms drifting within the clouds of spray, dissolving into the air when approached. Stories of ghostly encounters here stretch back centuries. One of the most enduring tales is that of a native woman who lost her children to the violent current. Some say her spirit lingers in the mist, wandering the banks in search of them. Campers and nighttime hikers have reported hearing a woman's cry carried through the roar of the water, a sound so mournful it chills the blood. When they try to follow the sound, it vanishes into the thundering rush of the falls. Another layer of haunting comes from the many drownings that have occurred at Tequamanon. The falls are massive, powerful, and unforgiving. Those who slipped too close to the edge were dragged under and never returned. Some say these souls are still trapped in the current. Anglers fishing nearby have reported voices whispering their names, urging them closer to the water. Others describe seeing pale faces rising within the foam before vanishing downstream. Perhaps the most chilling accounts come from the lower falls, where the river splits around a small island. Campers who brave the area after dark often speak of glowing lights moving along the water as though someone were carrying lanterns across the current. Yet no boats are ever found. A few claim they've seen full apparitions of people standing in the shallows, staring silently toward the main falls before dissolving into mist. Hikers also report strange sensations along the forest trails leading to the falls. Some describe sudden cold spots as if walking into a wall of icy air. Others feel watched, hearing twigs snap and footsteps behind them, though the paths are empty. One group even claimed they heard chanting in the distance, rhythmic and low, rising above the constant roar of the waterfall. When they searched, the forest was still. Tequamanon Falls is beautiful by day, but by night, it becomes a place where nature and the supernatural intertwine. The mist itself feels alive, curling through the trees, clinging to those who walk too close. Many who visit say they leave with a heavy sense that they've been in the presence of something ancient, something watching from just beyond the veil. For those who stand before the falls after dark, the sound of rushing water is more than nature's voice. It is a chorus of the lost, whispers of the drowned, cries of the grieving, and the eternal echo of spirits bound to one of Michigan's most haunting landscapes. Number 9. Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore, Munising. Along the southern shore of Lake Superior lies one of Michigan's most breathtaking landscapes, the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore. Towering sandstone cliffs rise from the cold, dark waters, painted in vivid hues of red, orange, and green by centuries of mineral seepage. By day, the area is a paradise for hikers, kayakers, and sightseers. By night, the towering cliffs, endless forests, and restless lake transform into something far more unsettling. The beauty of Pictured Rocks has always been shadowed by legends of haunting cries, phantom vessels, and ghostly figures that wander the shoreline. Lake Superior is notorious for its shipwrecks, and many of them are tied to this stretch of coast. The storms here are fierce, the waters frigid, and the rocky shores unforgiving. Sailors who once braved these waters often did not return, and locals believe their spirits remain bound to the lake. Kayakers have told of seeing tall-masted schooners gliding silently across the water under a full moon, their sails glowing white. Yet as the boats draw near, they vanish into mist, leaving behind only the crashing of waves. Some say these phantom ships appear just before storms, as if warning the living of the danger to come. The cliffs themselves also hold chilling legends. Known for their hollow caverns and dramatic rock formations, they seem to breathe with the wind. Many visitors report hearing voices carried on the gusts, cries of distress, whispers, and even what sounds like singing echoing off the stone. Hikers along the shoreline trail have stopped in their tracks, convinced they heard someone calling for help from the lake below, only to find the waters empty. Others swear they've heard the wails of shipwrecked sailors, forever echoing through the caverns. Locals tell of spectral figures along the beaches at night. Travelers camping near the shoreline have seen shadowy men walking the sands, some in ragged sailors' coats, others carrying lanterns. When approached, the figures fade into the fog. One chilling report comes from a group of hikers who spotted what they thought was a man standing at the edge of a cliff, staring out over the lake. Fearing he might jump, they rushed closer, but as they did, the figure dissolved into the mist. There is also a darker legend tied to the Native American tribes who once lived along these shores. The Ojibwe told stories of spirits who guarded the cliffs, warning people not to disrespect the land. Those who ignored the warnings sometimes disappeared without a trace. Even today, some campers describe feeling an oppressive presence when setting up too close to certain areas, as though unseen eyes were watching. What makes pictured rocks especially eerie is the lake itself. Lake Superior has been called a graveyard not only because of the many wrecks, but because the icy waters are so cold they preserve the bodies of the drowned. Some believe the souls of these lost sailors are still searching for peace. Fishermen have reported seeing pale hands reaching up from beneath the waves, only to vanish when they look again. By day, the cliffs are alive with color, but by night, they take on a menacing form, sheer walls of darkness looming over the water. Add the sound of waves crashing against the stone, the whisper of wind through the pines, and the distant cry of loons, and it becomes easy to believe this place is more than a natural wonder. It is a haunted shoreline, where the dead and the living sometimes walk the same paths. Number 10. Negwagon State Park, Alcona County. Deep in the northeastern part of Michigan's Lower Peninsula lies Negwagon State Park, a place so remote and untouched that many visitors describe it as both breathtaking and unsettling. The park stretches for thousands of acres along Lake Huron, with dense forests, wild meadows, and isolated beaches where the only sounds are the wind through the trees and the crashing of waves against the shore. It is the kind of wilderness where silence carries weight, where the dark feels heavier than anywhere else. And in that silence, many say strange things happen. Locals have long whispered about eerie lights that appear in the woods after sundown. Campers and hikers tell of glowing orbs floating between the trees, moving slowly as though they are searching. Some describe them as blue, others as green or white, but all agree they are unlike any lantern, flashlight, or firefly. The lights seem to flicker in patterns, sometimes leading people deeper into the forest, other times surrounding them before vanishing all at once. Those who have chased them claim the orbs always disappear just as you think you're close enough to touch them. Even more unsettling are the reports of voices in the forest. Visitors walking the trails at night have stopped dead in their tracks, convinced they heard chanting carried on the wind. Some describe it as low and rhythmic, like a chorus of voices rising and falling in unison. Others say it sounds like a single voice, singing in a language they cannot understand. What makes the phenomenon even more disturbing is that it often comes from deep within the woods, in areas where no one should be. A few hikers have admitted they turned back immediately, unable to shake the feeling that the forest was alive and watching them. The park itself is named after an Ojibwe chief, Negwagon, and many believe the land carries the weight of Native American history. The Ojibwe held ceremonies and gatherings in the region, and some speculate the chanting people hear today is a spiritual echo of those rituals. Others believe it is something far darker, restless spirits tied to the land, guarding it from those who venture too far without respect. The remoteness of Negwagon only heightens the fear. With few roads, no artificial lights, and miles of wilderness between you and civilization, there is no comfort in knowing help is nearby. Those who camp on the beaches often describe the uneasy feeling of being watched from the tree line. Some say they see shadows moving among the pines, larger than animals, yet disappearing the moment a flashlight beam cuts across them. One chilling account comes from a pair of hikers who set up camp along one of the trails. Late into the night, they awoke to the sound of footsteps circling their tent, followed by faint voices speaking in low tones. Terrified, they stayed silent until morning. When they emerged, there were no footprints in the soil, only the marks of the deer and small animals common to the area. Perhaps the most unnerving part of Negwagon is the isolation itself. Here, the usual explanations for strange lights or noises, cars, neighbors, or human activity do not apply. Once the sun goes down, you are alone with the forest, the lake, and whatever else still lingers in the shadows. For some, that solitude is peaceful. For others, it is terrifying. Negwagon State Park is both a sanctuary and a haunted wilderness, a place where nature's beauty and mystery collide. Whether the lights and chanting are echoes of the past or something far stranger, one thing is certain: once you've spent a night here, you will never forget it. Number 11. Mackinac Island Forest Trails, Mackinac County. Mackinac Island is famous for its historic charm, horse-drawn carriages, and stunning shoreline views. But beyond the bustling main streets and tourist-filled attractions lies something far darker. The island's forest trails, winding paths that stretch into thick, shadowy woods, hold a reputation for being haunted. Those who step off the beaten path at dusk often describe the unsettling sensation of being followed, watched, and sometimes even surrounded by unseen presences. Unlike most places in Michigan, cars are banned on Mackinac Island. This leaves the trails eerily quiet once the day's visitors retreat. The only sounds are the clip-clop of horses' hooves, the rustling of leaves, and the occasional call of a bird overhead. But many riders and hikers insist they have heard far more than nature in these woods. They tell of footsteps pacing behind them, only to turn around and find no one there. Some report shadows slipping between the trees, moving inhumanly fast, always staying just out of sight. Horse riders in particular have shared unnerving accounts. Carriage drivers say their horses spook without reason, refusing to continue down certain paths as if something invisible blocks the way. In the worst cases, the animals rear and bolt, eyes wide in terror at something their human companions cannot see. One driver claimed he saw a tall, dark figure step into the road ahead of him before vanishing completely, a shadow so solid he thought at first it was another rider. Hikers experienced something even more disturbing. People have felt an icy breath on their necks, or the press of unseen hands against their shoulders as though urging them forward. Others describe faint whispers carried on the breeze, so close they seem to come from right behind their ears. Some leave the trails shaken, swearing never to return after dark. The island's history may explain why these trails feel so heavy. Long before it became a tourist destination, Mackinac Island was sacred to Native American tribes who believed it to be a place where the spirits of the dead gathered. Later, during the War of 1812, battles spilled blood across its soil, and many soldiers were buried in unmarked graves scattered through the woods. With such a violent and spiritual past, it is not surprising that shadows linger here. One chilling tale involves two hikers who got lost on the trails after sunset. As they tried to find their way back, they heard what sounded like multiple sets of footsteps surrounding them. Every time they stopped, the footsteps stopped too. At one point, one hiker claimed he saw a tall figure standing only a few yards away, its form darker than the night around it. When they shined their flashlight toward it, the figure dissolved into the trees. They found their way out, shaken and pale, convinced they had been stalked by something not human. By day, Mackinac Island's forest trails seem peaceful, even inviting. But once night falls, the woods take on a different personality, quiet, oppressive, and filled with shadows that don't belong. For many visitors, the haunting is not in what they see, but in what follows them home, the lingering memory of those unseen eyes in the dark. Number 12. Silver Lake Sand Dunes, Oceana County. Stretching for miles along Lake Michigan's shoreline, the Silver Lake Sand Dunes are one of the state's most breathtaking natural wonders. By day, families climb the sandy hills, off-road vehicles roar across the open stretches, and the golden sun makes the dunes glow. But once night falls, the beauty of this place transforms into something unsettling. The wind whistles across the dunes like a mournful song, and shadows lengthen over the vast emptiness. It is in this silence that many have encountered the unexplained. Visitors speak of phantom lights drifting across the dunes, glowing orbs that move with intelligence, as though searching for something. Some say they pulse in and out, vanishing before reappearing in a different spot. Campers have reported following them, thinking they were lanterns of other hikers, only to find themselves alone in the middle of the dunes with no one in sight. Others insist the lights chased them, darting closer before disappearing just as they reached safety. Ghostly figures are also said to wander these sands. Witnesses describe tall, hazy silhouettes appearing against the starlit sky, walking along the ridges before fading like smoke. These apparitions are often tied to old legends of lost travelers and even Native American spirits said to roam the dunes, eternally restless. Some connect the lights and figures to shipwreck victims, their souls drifting inland from Lake Michigan in search of peace. Perhaps the most terrifying reports come from those who camp overnight. People describe waking to strange footprints circling their tents, even though no other campers were nearby. Others have heard soft voices carried on the wind, whispers that seem too close and too human to be natural. One couple claimed they heard laughter echoing in the distance, only to discover they were the only ones in the area. The Silver Lake Sand Dunes are alive with activity during the day, but after dark they become something far stranger, a vast, shifting desert haunted by lights and figures that defy explanation. The endless sands make it nearly impossible to tell where the world of the living ends and the world of the spirits begins. And the Silver Lake sand dunes are not the only place in Michigan where nature itself seems alive with ghosts. Farther to the north, in one of the state's most remote wilderness areas. Number 13. Manitou Passage, Lake Michigan. The Manitou Passage is one of the most treacherous stretches of water in the Great Lakes, running between the Sleeping Bear Dunes and the North and South Manitou Islands. Sailors have feared it for centuries, calling it a graveyard of ships. Dozens of vessels were claimed by its rocky shoals, sudden storms, and shifting sands. Many of those wrecks still rest beneath the waves, but according to countless reports, not all the ships stayed at the bottom. Fishermen and boaters crossing the passage often tell of phantom ships rising out of the mist. They appear suddenly, their sails billowing though there is no wind, their decks silent and empty. Some look like schooners from the 1800s, weathered and worn, yet eerily intact. Witnesses describe hearing faint bells, footsteps, or even voices shouting commands across the water. Then, just as quickly as they appear, the ships fade into the fog or vanish in full daylight as if they were never there. The voices of lost sailors are also said to haunt the Manitou Passage. On still nights, boaters claim to hear desperate cries carried over the waves, men calling for help, warning of storms, or screaming as if drowning. These chilling sounds often come when no other vessels are in sight. Locals say they are the echoes of those who perished in the wrecks, doomed to repeat their final moments for eternity. Perhaps the most famous tale is that of the schooner Francisco Morazan, which ran aground near South Manitou Island in 1960. Though the crew was rescued, many visitors report seeing a ghostly outline of the ship sailing through the passage on stormy nights. Others speak of shadowy figures standing at the rail, staring into the darkness before vanishing back into the mist. Number 14. Keweenaw Peninsula Mines and Forests, Upper Peninsula. The Keweenaw Peninsula in Michigan's Upper Peninsula is known for its rugged beauty, dense forests, and historic copper mines. But beneath that beauty lies a dark and tragic past. From the mid-1800s through the early 1900s, thousands of men labored deep underground in dangerous conditions, digging copper out of the unforgiving rock. Many never returned. Cave-ins, explosions, poisonous gases, and brutal accidents claimed countless lives. Their stories remain carved into the tunnels, and locals say their spirits still wander the mines and the surrounding wilderness. Hikers exploring the old mining trails often report unsettling experiences. In the quiet of the forest, some hear the faint echo of pickaxes striking stone, as if unseen workers are still toiling beneath the earth. Others describe muffled voices speaking in Finnish, Cornish, or Italian, the languages of the immigrant miners who once made the Keweenaw their home. These sounds usually vanish the moment you stop to listen, leaving behind only silence and the rustle of the trees. Inside abandoned mine shafts, the reports grow more chilling. Shadow figures move just out of reach of lantern light. Cold winds rush through sealed tunnels where no draft should exist. Visitors say they felt hands brush against their shoulders in the darkness, as though the restless spirits are still at work or warning intruders to leave. Some even claim to have seen full apparitions, pale, soot-covered miners staring blankly before fading into the stone walls. The forests themselves seem to carry the weight of tragedy. Campers in remote areas tell of hearing footsteps circling their tents at night, followed by heavy breathing or the clink of metal tools. Others spot lantern-like lights weaving through the trees, always too far to catch, but too deliberate to dismiss. Locals believe these are the spirits of miners still making their way home, forever lost in the wilderness. The Keweenaw is both breathtaking and haunted, a place where the line between history and the supernatural is razor thin. Every rusted piece of equipment, every collapsed shaft, every silent grove of trees is a reminder that the land remembers and that those who perished here may never have left. Number 15. Dogman Territory, Wexford County Forests. Deep in the dense forests of Wexford County lies one of Michigan's most enduring and terrifying legends, the Michigan Dogman. Unlike the spirits and ghosts tied to tragic history, this creature belongs to the realm of cryptids, half man, half wolf, and wholly terrifying. For generations, stories of the Dogman have haunted hunters, campers, and travelers who dare venture into the dark woods of northern Michigan. The legend traces back to 1887, when two lumberjacks near Big Rapids reported seeing a creature with a man's body and a dog's head. It stood upright, towering nearly 7 feet tall, with glowing eyes that pierced the night. Since then, sightings have continued for over a century, with reports surfacing every decade like clockwork. Locals whisper that the Dogman appears in cycles, bringing fear to those unlucky enough to cross its path. In Wexford County, where much of the forest remains wild and untouched, encounters feel disturbingly real. Campers tell of hearing guttural growls that shake the trees, followed by heavy footsteps circling their tents. Hunters have reported seeing massive canine tracks that abruptly vanish, as if the creature leapt into the trees or simply disappeared. Others claim to have locked eyes with a tall wolf-like beast that stood on 2 legs before retreating silently into the shadows. Perhaps most unsettling are the stories of screams echoing through the forest at night. Not the cries of coyotes or wolves, but something deeper, more human, a sound that freezes blood and leaves even the bravest outdoorsman fleeing for safety. Those who've heard it describe it as part howl, part scream, something that doesn't belong to any known animal. Skeptics dismiss the Dogman as folklore, a campfire tale that grew from the imaginations of lumberjacks and farmers. But for those who live near Wexford's sprawling forests, the legend feels far too real. Strange livestock mutilations, unexplained shadows crossing rural roads, and chilling howls have all been tied to the beast. Even law enforcement officers have quietly admitted to hearing reports they cannot explain. The Dogman remains a mystery, part local legend, part supernatural warning. Whether you believe in the creature or not, the forests of Wexford County carry an atmosphere of unease. When the wind howls and the trees creak under the moonlight, many locals say you can feel it watching. Perhaps the Dogman is nothing more than a story passed down to frighten children. Or perhaps, somewhere in the heart of Michigan's wilderness, the half-man, half-wolf still roams, waiting for its next unsuspecting encounter. We have now walked through forests where shadows move without bodies, stood on shores where phantom ships still sail, and listened to the cries of the wind that may not be wind at all. Michigan's landscapes are breathtaking, but behind their beauty lies a darker truth. From haunted dunes and waterfalls to islands steeped in legend, the state's natural wonders seem to hold more than just history. They hold restless spirits, echoes of tragedy, and creatures that defy explanation. Some of these stories are tied to real events, shipwrecks, mining disasters, and lost settlers. Others blur the line between folklore and reality, whispered from one generation to the next. But one thing is certain: those who step into these wild places often return with stories they cannot explain. Whether it's the Dogman's growl deep in the forests of Wexford, or the phantom lights drifting across Silver Lake dunes, Michigan reminds us that nature has its own way of keeping secrets. So the next time you find yourself exploring the dunes, walking the trails, or gazing into the waters of the Great Lakes, listen closely. Watch the shadows. Feel the air shift. You might not be as alone as you think. Thank you for joining us on this journey through 15 most haunted natural places in Michigan. If you enjoyed this exploration and want more haunted histories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, whether you believe in spirits or not, the next chilling legend may be waiting right outside your door.